Hello. Oh, I wasn't expecting a response. Hi. I'm gonna just raise this up, for tall people. Hey. All right. Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Thank you for being here. I apologize for the slightly late start. Hopefully everybody has an order of service, and you should also have a printout for the lyrics to Won't You Be My Neighbor. We will be using that later. I may also have a second handout for you later on. We'll see if the office printer decides to cooperate with me. But today's service, I guess I should just read from the script. But we do have a guest presenter today, Marie Flannery from the Toledo Fair Housing Center, and she's going to be talking to us about housing discrimination issues and the ways in that the Toledo Fair Housing Center works to address those issues. Anyway, yeah, we're supposed to start with our song. So you all know the song, Whoever You Are, I assume. If you don't know it, just follow along. It's pretty easy to learn. And we're going to start on this note. La, thank you, Sam. La. Ready? Whoever you are, we welcome you. Wherever you come from, we welcome you. Whomever you love, we welcome you. Whoever you are, we welcome you. Wherever you come from, we welcome you. Whomever you love, we welcome you. Beautiful, thank you. So good morning, everyone. I am Megan Ranciere, and I'll be presenting service today along with Marie Flannery from the Toledo Fair Housing Center. John Schutze is providing technical assistance and moderating the chat box in Zoom. Thank you all so much for being here in person, and thank you to our Zoom attendees for tuning in today. It's wonderful to see everyone who could be here in person, and we're glad that we can keep in touch and support our community virtually for those who aren't able to join us. Please be aware we are recording this service and it will be posted on our Facebook and YouTube pages. However, we do turn off the recordings during Joys and Concerns, so that part is private. We joined together this morning to seek justice, equality, and fairness in the world. Our hearts are touched by the human need we feel around us, whether far away or within reach of our hands. We come here to be together because this is how we believe our lives are best lived. In questioning and in conversation, in compassion and in service, in gratitude and in joy, in companionship and in love. It is good to be together with you this morning. Please take a moment to think of all your friends at MVUUC. Greet them here in person or with a comment in the chat box. And remember that you can still reach out to them through email, phone, social media, or video chat. Physical distancing does not need to mean emotional distancing. Let us support one another. So we can take a few minutes now to greet each other. You may have already done that, but if there's somebody near you that you haven't said hello to yet, you can take a couple minutes and do that.
Hi, Zoom. I tried to be in the background.
I just noticed the beautiful flower arrangement that we have this morning. I assume that's from Hannah and Sam McAbee. Thank you. It's all Hannah. Okay, thank you, Hannah. She always does such amazing work, so thank you. Visitors, as we are a diverse group with varying interests and beliefs, our services are varied in format, tone, and topic. We encourage you to attend or view several services to gain a good understanding of our congregation. If you'd like to receive our weekly email newsletter, please email us at news, N-E-W-S, @mvuuc.org. We remain committed to supporting our members and friends as we continue to work through social distancing. For that reason, we are coordinating assistance with groceries, phone calls, and other needs. If this sounds like something that would be helpful to you, please send an email to sac at mvuuc.org with your name and what kind of assistance you'd like to request. Now is the time for announcements. If you have an announcement this morning, you can come up to the microphone and make it here. You can also send announcements ahead of time to services@mvuuc.org to be read. If you have an important announcement now, you can raise your hand and come on up. If you're attending via Zoom and you have an announcement, you can raise your hand by clicking the raise hand button in the reactions tab at the bottom right of the Zoom window. We'll announce your name and turn on your mic and camera so you can make your announcement, or John can just read it from the chat box for you. So are there any in-person announcements today? Go ahead, Noel.
Hello, everybody. I think everybody knows me, but maybe a few not. I'm Noel Mcclooney. I'm the current president of MVUC. I just had kind of one announcement. I think most of you know by now that Sarah, our wonderful Sarah Rennie Smithback, is resigning from her position as our RE director. So very sad, but you know, exciting for her. She wants to focus on you know, her becoming writing her book, right? Yeah. Sarah shouldn't make this announcement, but anyway, we are starting to think about what the future of RE will look like, whether that's posting for another director, what are we doing kind of in the interim as we do that, those kind of things. I did put that in the newsletter, a when to meet to sign up for that. I had a few people respond, so it looks like our meeting is going to be tomorrow, Monday at 1 o'clock. So if you want to join us, please let me know. Again, it's in the newsletter, or you can email me, so you can be part of that conversation. So it'll be via Zoom. Yeah. So yeah, thank you.
So I just texted John to ask if there are any announcements in Zoom. I'm just going to really quickly check the chat box. Hybrid services are. It looks like there aren't any announcements in Zoom. So we're going to move on to the Chalice Lighting. And our chalice will be lit this morning by Bob Rex. Please join me in reading the abridged words by Erica Hewitt for the lighting of the chalice. And for Zoom attendees, they appear as a comment in the chat box. Yeah, so if you want to light that. You know, even the slightest breeze is okay. So here we go. This morning, we remember all of the people who have been told explicitly or implicitly through police violence or government policy, through derision or dehumanization, that they're anything less than whole, anything less than beloved. As we each light a chalice, may we make of our lives a beacon, a symbol of our promise to draw the circle wide, a sign that we will not rest until all means all. Thank you, Bob. And for our first musical selection today, we are going to attempt collectively an a cappella version of Here We Have Gathered, which is hymn number 360 in your hymnal. And I'm going to grab one from Aubrey, if she doesn't mind. Yeah, all right. Sam is a human pitch pipe, and that's a good thing. So our first note will be, and if you don't know this tune, I'm going to sing it really quickly through once for you. So just listen the first time. Here we have gathered side by side, circle of kinship, come and step inside. May all who seek here find a kindly word. May all who speak here feel they have been heard. Sing now together this our heart's own song. Okay, hey, thanks. I'm a music teacher, you know. So let's do all three verses, okay? Here we have gathered side by side, circle of kinship, come and step inside. May all who seek here find a kindly word. May all who speak here feel they have been heard. Sing now together this our heart's own song. Here we have gathered, called to celebrate days of our lifetime, matter small and great. We of all ages, women, children, men, infants and sages, sharing what we can. Sing now together this our heart's own song. Life has its battles, sorrows and regret, but in the shadows let us not forget. We who now gather know each other's pain. Kindness can heal us, as we give we gain. Sing now in friendship this our heart's own song. Beautiful, everyone. Yeah, give yourselves a round of applause. All right. So our opening words for today are a poem called What is a Home, written by Joseph Green. And what's really interesting is that Joseph Green originally wrote this poem for a national conference of the National Association of Realtors. But they were having, and rightly so, they were having a session on housing discrimination and social justice issues. So they asked him to write this poem, and this is the poem that he delivered. Just need a drink. Incidentally, you can find his rendition, his performance of this poem on YouTube, and I highly recommend it. I stand watch in center of my home as a breeze races through the slightly cracked doors of my balcony. My son, 4 years old, is learning a lesson in patience as he repeats for the 30th time, "Sit, Fisher, sit." My fiance, bless you. My fiance is typing furiously away at some report. Our bellies are full and my heart overruns with joy. I think to myself, I am happy. This is home. As I look out into the world, I bear witness to the structures that divide us. It is in this moment that I began to realize that the answer to my question, what is a home, is so much more than just what my eyes can see. The truth of home is not found in brick and mortar. It is the freedom to roam around your neighborhood, knowing that safety exists with or without streetlights. It's the peace of mind that comes when access to fresh groceries is given. The pride of legacy because your children are being educated in an environment fertile to their growth. What is a home? I stand watch in my home and beam as my family thrives, but a feeling of unease begins to arrest me as I realize that one day the size of this home will no longer be conducive to our dreams. But when flight is necessary, will we be able to land where we need? Will I be shown the homes that work best for me, or only homes in communities that find me to be acceptable? Will integration and access remain a dream as segregation and denial reign supreme? As I look out into the world, I bear witness to the structures that divide us. They look less like structures and more like systems, less like systems and more like people, less like people and more like the worst parts of ourselves, devolving into prehistoric instincts of survival. As if we haven't consistently proven wrong that the way a person looks doesn't dictate their behavior, but the way we treat them does. If you want to make people feel like outsiders, leave them outside. Want to make people violent and desperate? Redline them into cages. Want to destroy the heart of a city? Gentrify her people into ghosts. What is a home? No longer a need to ask that question. The only questions that matter now are, will I work to grant dreams or ward over a broken reality? Will you work to grant dreams or ward over a broken reality? Will we be the granters of dreams or ward over a broken reality? And now I will introduce our guest speaker for today, Marie Flannery from the Toledo Fair Housing Center. Please welcome Marie. Oh, great. That's a great idea. Yeah, let's do that.
Hi, everybody.
Oh, I'm sorry. There you go.
Good morning. Do we have room? No. Okay. Good morning. And okay. Well, I kind of speak loud, so I'm sure you won't have a problem hearing me. That's never been an issue in my life, is not being able to be heard. Thank goodness. But good morning. I'm really happy to be here. I'm Marie Flannery, and I'm the president and CEO of the Fair Housing Center in Toledo. I've been with the center since the fall of 2018. And prior to that, I ran a fair housing center in Southern California. And prior to that, interesting how life takes turns, I spent 10 years as a real estate attorney foreclosing on people's houses. So, you want to talk about karma. I always say that, I'm now fixing my karma one day at a time. I feel like I started out here and maybe I'm here, so lots of work still to be done, obviously. But I'm happy to be here today and talk to you about, my favorite topic, fair housing. And fair housing means that everybody has an opportunity to live where they choose and where they can afford, but that barriers to affording housing are also, addressed so that truly people can live where they choose. That at its core is what fair housing is. Taking it a step further, since this is somewhat of a, it's Sunday and it's a little bit of a religious thing, then taking it a step further, fair housing really is just about the golden rule, right? Treating each other when it comes to housing the way that we would want to be treated. It took me a while to realize that, but at the bottom of it, that's really what fair housing is all about. So we spend a lot of time, those of us who work, with government entities like HUD and things like that, our government spends a lot of time sorting people into categories. Even at the Fair Housing Center, we have to collect data so that we can prove to our funders that we helped who we helped, like demographics and income and things like that. And we are also in this country sorted into neighborhoods to a greater or lesser extent. And some neighborhoods literally can kill you. There are neighborhoods in this country where the life expectancy is 20 years less than a neighborhood 10 miles away because of, whether that neighborhood is located in an industrial area or has lack of resources, lack of healthy food. We're really working in Toledo to address food deserts because there's a lot of neighborhoods, particularly in the urban core, where all of the grocery stores have basically left and all that's left is like a Dollar General. And what do they sell? High sodium convenience foods. So that's a movement that we're really working on. But your life outcomes really are tied to where you live. Where you live does matter. If you want to look at some statistics, the homeownership rate for white households is 73+%. And for Black households, it is 42%, and Latino households, 46%. Especially the African-American homeownership rate, the foreclosure crisis of 08, 9, 10, 11, 12, it lasted a long time, came upon us, and that was the communities of color were the ones that were hardest hit. And that's because they were targeted for subprime loans that were riskier loans, less favorable terms, even in situations where they could have qualified for a traditional loan. And so those neighborhoods were the hardest hit and have not rebounded the same way that white neighborhoods have. For example, that homeownership rate of 42.9% is actually less than the African-American homeownership rate in 1968 when the Fair Housing Act was passed. So we had, gained some significant ground and we've lost it again. And, people of color also tend to experience higher unemployment rates. And part of that is because this country, we don't spend adequate funds or resources on public transportation. And a lot of times in many communities, the jobs are not where public transportation can get you. So, there's a whole swath of the, of our neighbors who can't access the jobs that are available because public transportation won't get them there. Our former HUD secretary, Ben Carson, was very fond of saying that, it's really important for people to pull themselves up by their bootstraps. And to that, I have always said, but what if you have no boots? And fair housing is really about, when it comes to housing, equipping people with the boots that they need to succeed in their lives. Because housing, if you think about it, is the foundation of everything in our lives. It is the foundation of everything that we are or have the potential to be. So if you start out your life in, unhealthy, exposed to lead-based paint, or, in substandard housing in a neighborhood where, the schools are under-resourced, et cetera, you're already starting behind the curve. So you can try and pull yourself up by your bootstraps, but you can only go as far as those boots will take you. So low income and majority minority zip codes are more likely to experience substandard housing conditions, like I said, limited access to healthy food, higher obesity rates, which leads to other health issues, so therefore shorter life expectancies, and exposure to violent crime and other traumas. Criminal justice system, we all know, is very skewed in this country. African Americans are incarcerated at 6 times the rate of whites, and Black men are sentenced to, in a drug case, disproportionately higher to longer prison terms and all of that than their white counterparts. And, obviously incarceration negatively impacts the community because it takes, fathers out of homes or mothers out of homes. It has a long lasting impact on a community. So the question is, how did we get here? And I would say that if you can see this map, this is a map that the Homeowners Loan Corporation did of the city of Toledo back in 1938, back when the government first got into underwriting mortgages. the Homeowners Loan Corporation went around and mapped the country. And this is what's called a redlining map. So, and this was like a risk map. So it told lenders, okay, blue and green neighborhoods are good. You should lend in these areas. Red and yellow, red, don't invest in that neighborhood. It's not worth it. And yellow is use extreme caution because it's a changing neighborhood. And this was even back in the late 30s, early 40s. So this is a map of Toledo, the redlining map from 1938. And you can see all along the river, what we now consider the urban core is the red and predominantly red and yellow areas. So this is a recent dot density map from HUD's website. And it shows the, in the center there, I believe it's the green dots, that's Black neighborhoods. And then the orange dots are white. And if you go back, you can see that it's our segregated areas still track. And it's like this all across the country. Yes, housing discrimination has been illegal since April 11th, 1968, but the patterns, the die was already cast as far as our neighborhoods go. And we have spent the last 50 plus years trying to undo the harm that was caused with these policies going back to the 30s. Other examples, you know, properties when the government first got into, you know, mortgages and, you know, subdivisions were built, they were built for like white working class people, white middle class people. African Americans did not qualify for any of these loans. They weren't allowed to take advantage of them. And then as our neighborhoods were being developed, there were these racially restrictive covenants that we still see in deeds. They're no longer enforceable, but they're still there. And here's an example of one. No property in said addition shall at any time be sold, conveyed, rented, or leased in whole or in part to any person or persons not of the white or Caucasian race. No person other than one of the white or Caucasian race shall be permitted to occupy any property in said addition or portion thereof or building thereon, except as a domestic servant actually employed by a person of the white or Caucasian race, where the latter is an occupant of such property. That was how our neighborhoods were segregated. And, you know, as you could tell, even in Toledo, things haven't really changed. Here in 2014, and I will tell you, the updated map doesn't look any different. The yellow is those same neighborhoods. This is the lending patterns in the city of Toledo in 2014. So you see in all of the white neighborhoods that surround, there were lots of loans. And if you look, there was like 2, maybe 3 in the urban core in Toledo. And this is as we were coming out of the foreclosure crisis. But the map hasn't really changed. And prior to be fair, prior to the foreclosure crisis, there was lots of lending going on. Unfortunately, it was that subprime kind of lending that was very risky and unsustainable for many homeowners. So what can we do about it? You know, we have a lot of civil rights laws, and the one that deals with fair housing is the Civil Rights Act of 1968. There are federal enforcement mechanisms. The Department of Housing and Urban Development is in charge of enforcing the Fair Housing Act. And it's interesting that the Fair Housing Act was actually passed, finally came into law 1 week after the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King. As the country erupted in flames, I remember this. I was 5 in 1968, but I remember seeing, you know, the riots on TV. It kind of burned itself into my consciousness, and that was finally the catalyst for both sides, Democrats and Republicans, to come together and finally get the Fair Housing Act passed into law. Initially, the Fair Housing Act didn't really have an enforcement mechanism, so it was a solution without any teeth. And as time went on, in the late 80s, it was amended, and HUD and the Department of Justice took a much greater you know, role in enforcing it. And groups like the Toledo Fair Housing Center, which was actually organized back in 1975, formed all across the country to act as, in essence, private attorneys general to enforce the Fair Housing Act through investigation and filing of complaints and education and outreach to, hopefully prevent discrimination. So actually, I just told you who we are. We were founded by the women of the Old West End and also other community groups such as the League of Women Voters. So women had a large role in the creation of the Fair Housing Center. And that was because a woman named Marcia Fine had moved to Toledo and she wanted to live in the Old West End. She wanted to live in a historical integrated neighborhood, and she could not find a realtor that would show her properties there. And she's like, wait a minute, I know this is illegal. We have to do something about this. And that's how the Fair Housing Center got started. So, that adage about never doubt what, can be accomplished by a small group of committed people. I think the Fair Housing Center is a great example of that. There are a number of protected classes. Federally, the federal government protects housing discrimination based on race, color, national origin, religion, sex/gender, familial status, which means families with children, and disability. Those are the 7 federal protected classes. And in Ohio, we add military status, age, and ancestry. Toledo has also added sexual orientation and gender identity, immigration status, and source of income, which deals with how you pay your rent, and which includes, for example, a housing choice voucher, because HUD created the Housing Choice Voucher, or Section 8 program, a lot of people know it as a way for people to be able to take their voucher and move wherever they wanted to. And if they wanted to live, in the suburbs and send their kids to good schools, they should be able to do so. The problem is, from the landlord side, they made it voluntary, and most landlords don't accept vouchers. And so people still end up congregated and segregated into our neighborhoods of color and low income, under-resourced neighborhoods. So Toledo has taken the first step in banning discrimination based on these things. The next step, though, is that they didn't really it's like the Fair Housing Act when it was first passed. They didn't really put any teeth behind it. So we need to work with them to come up with a private enforcement mechanism, some kind of an enforcement mechanism, so that a landlord that does discriminate on these characteristics can be held accountable. So there are a lot of things that we at the Fair Housing Center work on. One is criminal history, and how far back they look, and if they evaluate whether or not the criminal history has anything to do with someone's ability to be a good tenant. And we're working on zoning. There are still restrictive zoning issues that we're facing, that we're working with the city on. And then again, the source of income protection. And also we work regularly with local banks to, encourage them and when necessary, hold them accountable for lending in all neighborhoods. One of the really fun outreach events that we do every April during Fair Housing Month, because April is Fair Housing Month, is we have a local poetry contest, and it's called Ode to the Zip Code, and people pen short poems based on their zip codes. So my zip code is 43613. So the first line has 4 words, 3613. And so they're little poems, but they end up being very descriptive, and they give us some insight into how people experience where they live. So 43615 is a pretty well-resourced neighborhood in Toledo. So that poem was: cool walking, jazz swinging, laid back picnic crowds, sprawled smooth like lush improvised lawns, sunset, lyrics strolling like eavesdropped memories. But then 43607 is a much less resourced neighborhood. No place like home, street fights outside, bullets illuminate the sky like firecrackers. Urban subculture cacophony resounds deeply, my Toledo. So it is a really good educational tool. And this year, we've now done 6 years of this poetry contest. We're going to be putting together a book of the poems with some history behind the neighborhoods from which these poems come. We do work here in Wood County. There is a woman that lives in Swanton, and at the Pageland Place, it's a low-income housing tax credit property. She's African-American. She moved there because she wanted her kids to be able to take advantage of the resources in the schools and all of that. And she's been continually harassed by her neighbors, and has had a really hard time there. The chief of police, according to her, said, well, why don't you just move like the other Black people did? And so right now, she has a case that's working its way. Those are the kinds of cases that, that we work on and we try and help people with. And then the Welcome in My Backyard movement is something that we've been trying to do to counteract. Everybody probably knows what NIMBYism is, not in my backyard. And WIMBY means welcome in my backyard. And, every time it seems like someone wants to develop affordable housing, or, maybe, multifamily housing, which tends to be more affordable, et cetera, or housing for folks that need supportive housing, that maybe have mental or physical disabilities. There's always a group, it seems like, that is like, well, not here, right? You can put it somewhere, but not here. And we deal with that a lot in Toledo. And actually we're working through a few cases where folks have tried to put like recovery housing, or build a permanent supportive housing apartment complex for folks that were formerly homeless. And, the neighborhoods are not in favor of it. And sometimes, the government, the zoning, they can't discriminate. And so, encouraging our local leaders to follow the law, maybe even when it's not popular with the neighborhood, is sometimes very challenging. And then finally, this year, we did a documentary during the pandemic, but we had already gotten the grant to do this. And so if you have the opportunity, it is zipcodematters.com. Go to that website, and it's a 28-minute documentary. I would have loved to have been able to show it to you, but I know we only have so much time today. And it takes you through why where you live matters. And it takes a more detailed look at all of the things that I mentioned, like, healthcare access and transportation and education, and all of the things that make our neighborhoods either good or not. And so it's really worth a watch. So I had to put a shameless plug in for the Zip Code Matters documentary, and I can also send the link and it can be sent out to you. So yeah. And we'd really appreciate everybody watching. I know one of the things that we were going to do is there is a pledge associated with Welcome in My Backyard. And I didn't realize that I should have printed some and brought them with me. So I think what I'd like to do, and if you are interested in participating, is ask you to take the WIMBY pledge with me. And so I will say, and then you repeat back to me. I affirm that I welcome individuals from all walks of life into my neighborhood and my community. And that I value human diversity in all its forms. I cherish my right to live according to my own values. And I respect the rights of all others to do the same. I am personally opposed to discrimination, harassment, and intolerance. Based on a person's race, color, religion, national origin, gender, disability, familial status, marital status and age, source of income, sexual orientation, gender identity and expression, and military and immigration status. I recognize that I might also hold various prejudices that I have developed during my lifetime. Sorry, I should have broke that up more. I will try to better understand and reverse such personal biases to avoid acting upon them. I pledge to respect those whose backgrounds and experiences are different from my own by saying, "You are welcome in my backyard." Thank you so much. I sure will. I sure will. And it's also available on our website, but I'll just send you a bunch of resources
Yes,
that you
absolutely. And I thank you so much, Marie. That was amazing and very informative. And my mea culpa here is that I did intend to bring copies of the Wendy Pledge with me and I didn't. So we will make that available through the newsletter. We're going to move on to joys and concerns at this time. But before we do that, one second. If you are currently in the sun more than you would like to be, especially folks on this side, please feel free, if you want to move your chairs in more into the shade, you're always welcome to do that. You are not going to disturb us if you, yeah, go ahead. I also have a chair back there if you just want to sit in that chair closer to the shade. Okay. Oh, it's okay. It's time for the offertory. So now more than ever, we are counting on your pledge payments and donations to help sustain and strengthen this congregation that is so important to all of us, supporting our efforts to be a community of love, truth, justice, and service. If you're in Zoom, please click on the link in the chat box and be sure to select the correct designation on the drop-down box when you donate. Thank you. And if you're in person, Lisa has the offertory baskets and we'll just quickly send those around. And at the same time, we will also do the sharing of joys, concerns, and milestones. John, please stop recording at this time. If you'd like to show, I'm going to, oh yes, thank you. John, could you please start recording again? Good save. So I'm going to go ahead and have us do the Extinguishing of the Chalice. And then as our closing song, we are going to do our Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood so that we condense things just a little bit since the sun is kind of getting high. So if everyone can turn to their order of service first and look at the words for Extinguishing the Chalice. And the wind has already extinguished it for us, so we can just focus on reading. So here we go. We have pledged to work for a more wholesome environment for us and for all the generations that follow. But these are just words. The hymns we sing are just songs. All our reflections are just idle thoughts. When we convert them all into loving and responsible action throughout the week, then and only then will this morning become what we want it to be, a time of worship. Thank you, everyone. So now we're going to try singing, and this is actually kind of a tough song. So if everybody, how many of you have watched Mr. Rogers before? All right, so yes, exactly. So if you have ever watched, yes, Ella's watched Mr. Rogers. So you've probably heard and maybe sung this song before. It's not a simple song, but we're gonna try it and see if we can get through it. I'll try to demonstrate once through for you, okay? And it's pretty short, so Sam. I'm gonna go a little lower than that. It's a beautiful day in this neighborhood, a beautiful day for a neighbor. Would you be mine? Could you be mine? It's a neighborly day in this beauty wood, a neighborly day for a beauty. Would you be mine? Could you be mine? I have always wanted to have a neighbor just like you. I've always wanted to live in a neighborhood with you. So let's make the most of this beautiful day. Since we're together, we might as well say, would you be mine? Could you be mine? Won't you be my neighbor? Won't you please? Won't you please? Please won't you be my neighbor? Yay, it sounds like you were singing along with me, so should we do it one more time? No? Yes, all right, Ella says yes. All right, so this time for real, ready? It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood, a beautiful day for a neighbor. Would you be mine? Could you be mine? It's a neighborly day in this beauty wood, a neighborly day for a beauty. Would you be mine? Could you be mine? I have always wanted to have a neighbor just like you. I've always wanted to live in a neighborhood with you. So let's make the most of this beautiful day. Since we're together, we might as well say, would you be mine? Could you be mine? Won't you be my neighbor? Won't you please? Won't you please? Please won't you be my neighbor? Thanks, neighbors. Okay, so this is the end of our service, but please feel free to stick around and socialize. Folks who are in Zoom, you can stick around for the post-service Zoom coffee hour as well. But that is the end of service. Thank you again to Marie Flannery, and thank you to all of you for being here. It's great to see you. Thank you, Marie. Oh, sure. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Hi.
I'm actually.
Glad I said yes.
I know, so soon.
Me too. The second time was better.
The baby is
So
coming
yeah.
on Wednesday.
On Wednesday.
How do you feel about that, Ardian?
I might see it's a bit hard
Yeah.
having another brother. But I'm having one because babies are cute.
Babies are super cute.
I get their feel. You want to get the rocks? I can feel it right
The rocks?
now.
Okay. Want to do that?
I feel a body for.
Yeah, don't push on the body parts. That hurts me.
Yeah. Well, and Ardian, I'm sure you already know about being a big brother, but it gets even more fun when you have more younger siblings.
Yeah, already.
I have no younger siblings. I am the youngest.
You're gonna get the biggest cup. Yeah.
Yeah, because I am the youngest,
You're the youngest. Yep.
and I hate it.
Well, someone's got to be the
I
youngest.
wanted to go talk to the lady who presented today.
I was gonna have a younger sibling, but
I would
yeah.
love to invite you and John over for dinner, maybe in a month.
Yeah, maybe when things settle down. No rush there. No
Just
rush.
like I know I'm gonna need a little recovery time,
Yeah,
so.
of course. Yeah, that would be wonderful.
But yeah, it'd be really good.
Good job, Ella.
Stop tapping that, please. I need some bodily autonomy at this moment. But yeah, that'd be really good. So,
We'll plan on it.
okay,
We'll do it.
excellent. So I'm sure.
Oh.
All right, let me go talk to the presenter.
And let me ask you something. Do you ever feel a baby kick when you listen to your mom's tongue?
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
And so I don't know if this is what happens with you and Jamie, but does he like look at you as like, does he worship
Right,
the ground?
exactly.
So for instance, if there's some bare
As your younger
spots and
brother.
some of it's a little taller,
stuff with you.
that's better.
Not all the
So
time?
there's all sorts of
Oh, I
things.
bet your littlest
So anyway,
brother.
I just thought I'd-
Like community garden.
No pressure though.
Right, Toledo grows
You're
a
probably
lot
right.
of some
Yeah.
neighborhoods that were really.
Hey, Charlie. Yeah.
So I should have first cow by Monday.
So we've been doing a little.
Hey buddy,
Sweet.
this is my space.
I'm gonna
This is
go
my
to
space.
the car.